there are serious times when you have some serious targets that will affect you emotionally. And we have detoxification methods so that you can detox from the emotion, and you can detox from any emotion you have or anything like that. But once you have experienced it in a remote viewing session, you can never forget the memory. Okay? And so this is one of the things that you can't protect from. You have an experience in a remote viewing session, and it's one of those cases where it's so real you can't tell you're not there, and it becomes part of your life experience. And so, yeah, there are real dangers.
Welcome back. I'm here again with Lyn Buchanan. Lyn, welcome back.
Hey, thank you for inviting me. Always glad to talk to you. I really enjoy it.
Yeah, I always love our chats. I think we probably chatted more outside of the actual interviews.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. That's fine. That's fine.
Hey, don't let those people know what we're talking about, right?
Oh, they're already listening anyway, right?
Oh, yeah.
They listen to everything anyway, so that's fine. Okay. So we're going to talk a little bit about psychic protection, particularly how the practice of remote viewing is not just about remote viewing, but also about preparing yourself, noticing things more intuitively, being more attentive to one's surroundings, but also just protecting oneself from the psychic influence of others, I'm guessing. So if you could talk a little bit about how remote viewing protects you in a sense.
Yeah, when we train the remote viewing, I would say at least half of what we train has nothing to do with being psychic. First of all, we split the course up into basic, intermediate, advanced, post-advanced, and then specialty courses, because each one of those has both individual training needs, but also protection needs from, protecting yourself from the target. In just the basic, we don't ever target you against a person, because that can be dangerous to a viewer. But we do target people sometime against a location or an activity or something that they will find unpleasant for themselves. And when that happens, then we train them how to deal with those targets without getting emotionally involved. This is a big part of the basic course. You get into the intermediate course, then we will start teaching you to deal with people. But before we do that, we have certain places on the page where here's how that person feels. Now over here, here's how I feel. And we make you, in the intermediate course, always keep that distance. And when you start narrowing those two together, the monitor will then change you to another topic, just like that, protect you from it. And in the process of you then becoming a monitor and watching other people do it, you learn to become sensitive to when that's happening, and you'll start doing it for yourself. You'll start protecting yourself, keeping that separation. When we get into medical applications, that's where people are sick. Physically sick, spiritually, emotionally sick, socially sick, many other ways. And so what happens is you're accessing them at their subconscious level. And you take Adolf Hitler, okay? And that man loved his family, okay? He also loved his dogs and pets and all that. He was, in those aspects, a really good guy. Now, sure, he killed a million people, but otherwise,
a little more than that. But
listen, if you were a dog, you were safe.
Yeah.
And so, you access him mentally. There are going to be some things that you agree with. No matter how bad the person is, there are going to be some things that you agree with. And once you start agreeing with that person, all of a sudden that's how they feel, I feel. All of a sudden that starts collapsing. And when it collapses, you get not only the good stuff, but the bad stuff.
When the United States and China clash, the world will never be the same, especially when forces beyond reality threaten to intervene. What if the United States went to war with the People's Republic of China? How would these rivals fight for supremacy on land, sea, air, and across the stochastic streams of time? What wonder weapons would be unleashed? What horrors would emerge from the irradiated sludge of the South China Sea? What heroes would rise and forever change the course of history? Tread into the deepest and darkest dimensions of the multiverse, gaze through a kaleidoscope of fractured realities, and bear witness to the disturbing visions of World War III from today's greatest minds in science fiction, fantasy, and horror. Weird World War, China. Available now from Baen Books at baen.com.
And there have been times when I've taken some evil people home to my family and regretted it, not realizing what had happened. My wife was pretty quick to nail me to the floor anytime something like that happened. And so she was an added level of protection for me. But, you've got to learn to protect yourself from the target person or a bad location. What if you're doing a thing for the police? A murder took place, okay? Trying to find the body of the victim, okay? And so you're trying to locate the body, and all of a sudden you find it. And it's in the dead animal dump of the city dump, okay? And all of a sudden you experience that, and you have nightmares months afterwards, And so we teach you before giving you any target, it's anything like that. We teach you all the protection techniques and how to protect yourself. Mentioning that a lot of our training is not about being psychic, but we have found we have exercises where you increase your vocabulary. Now, one of the problems that psychics and remote viewers have is they'll get an experience and they don't know how to say it. They don't know how to bring it and report it and all that. And so we have found that when you train a person to have a better vocabulary, all of a sudden, these experiences that they couldn't talk about before, they can talk about them now, and they appear to become more psychic. They're not more psychic. It's just that they can express what they perceive. And, in the military, it was all about details. We were there to spy and get details. And so we had to learn to do that. By the same token, your physical senses, you get those picked up in a remote viewing session. And so we will have people like go to a yard sale and here's a hairbrush and a regular brush. You pick them up, you feel the bristles on one, you feel the bristles on the other, and you try to tell the difference. What you're doing is you're teaching yourself smaller and smaller differences that you can distinguish. And the ambiance one, we have people walk through their house and they don't see the pictures on the walls. They don't, they're thinking about other things and all that. We have you, as you walk from one room to the other, say, what was the difference in the ambiance between that room and this room? And you don't have to, you don't have to totally describe it, but you have to become aware of changes in ambiance.
To advertise on Through a Glass Darkly, email throughaglassdarkly@gmail.com.
And I had one cop who had walked into a restaurant. There were criminals in there. He looked around. He was in uniform. He got shot. Okay. Was taken out of duty for a long time. And he learned this ambiance exercise that we had. I got a call from him one day, and he said, I walked into a restaurant, and without even knowing what I was doing, my pistol was out of its holster and pointed right at the criminal who was armed. And he said, I became that sensitive that I walked into the room and I could tell from the ambiance of the room, danger right there. And with this exercise, you get to where you can walk into a store and you can tell which cashier is going to be good. You can drive into a parking lot, and at the entrance to the parking lot, you'll know where there's a parking space. Things like this. And you're not more psychic. You just become more sensitive. And so as we teach you to become more sensitive, we also teach you to protect yourself because it's more important to do so. Okay? And so huge amount of the training that we teach you applies almost more to your regular life than it applies to your remote viewing. So yeah, the protection though, there are serious times when you have some serious targets that will affect you emotionally. And we have detoxification methods so that you can detox from the emotion and you can detox from any emotion you have or anything like that. But once you have experienced it in a remote viewing session, you can never forget the memory. Okay? And so this is one of the things that you can't protect from. You have an experience in a remote viewing session, and it's one of those cases where it's so real, you can't tell you're not there, and it becomes part of your life experience. And so, yeah, there are real dangers to good, effective remote viewing. Yeah.
Are there instances where there's a location, I'm going to say a specific location because that should evoke what I'm trying to get at. So I'm assuming you've heard about Skinwalker Ranch and this phenomena with the hitchhiker effect.
Yeah.
Is there a similar effect, or can there be a similar effect with remote viewing where let's just take Skinwalker Ranch, an entity will kind of hitchhike on the way back with you and it kind of influence you in some way? Is that a thing at all?
I would think the answer is yes. No, with my training, that doesn't happen. But I have met people who have had psychic experiences and can't get rid of them. Yeah. So, and, they have a lasting effect. But luckily, I got the training. And, the thing is, the controlled remote viewing that was used by the military was never meant to be used by psychics. They wanted to grab a soldier off the battlefield and teach him how to do the work of a good natural psychic. And as such, many natural psychics have sort of gotten calluses to the targets, and they've learned the hard way to deal with targets. But you take a person who is not a good natural psychic. And yeah, first, you teach them protection.
Yeah, that foots kind of with what Dr. Morehouse has also said.
Oh,
So one comment he's made is that engineers actually pick up the protocol pretty quickly because
they do.
I shouldn't say quickly, but it's easier for them to kind of do it because it's very process oriented. It's very
martial artists. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Like there's like a distancing that the protocol kind of provides you with in terms of, you receive the coordinates and then you draw a signal line. It's like very procedurally oriented.
Yeah.
So part of that kind of, I'm assuming subconsciously protects you in some way because it provides some distancing and a level of abstraction and distraction from the implications of what you're doing.
Well, just again, the martial arts, more than half of learning any martial art is not how to inflict something. It's how to protect yourself when they inflict you. Yeah.
Now, are there techniques to protect yourself from being remote viewed?
Yes. And most psychics know about the ball of white light and stuff like this. And that will work for most natural psychics. Now, to be totally honest about it, we found that when somebody puts a ball of white light around them or mirrors around them or something like that,
probably acts like an attractor, I bet.
It acts as an attractor. And what happens is they start depending on that, and their natural defenses go down. And for a controlled remote viewer, easy pickings. we can get the information in 5 minutes that it would otherwise take an hour to get, because they put their faith in this white light, which will protect them from a lot of psychics, most psychics. But in the process, their own defenses go down. And for a controlled remote viewer, makes for an easy day at work. Yeah.
Have you ever had to be, or have you ever gotten a foreign target where you were targeting a reputed Soviet psychic or foreign intelligence group that had kind of either remote viewers or psychics of some variety that you had to gather intelligence on?
Yes.
Can you talk about it?
Not really, but
okay. I won't
not without revealing what we found. So, and those things are pretty well classified in other countries. Also, what the other countries do along that line is pretty well kept close to the chest in our country too. Yeah. So the answer is yes.
Okay. Yeah, I'm not gonna pry it away.
Sorry about that.
I don't. No. Trust me. I don't want you to get a knock on the door like you did last time. Remember that?
Listen, I tell my students, when you do a session and you turn it in, and all of a sudden the next day, this string of black cars come up with their windows blacked out and all that, and they come in, bust your door down, take all your computers and take all your paperwork and everything else and threaten you with death or worse if you do, report any of it, and pile it all into a black van and off they go down the road, with all your stuff. The correct response to that is you stand there watching them go away with all of it and you think, damn, I'm good.
Has that ever happened to any of your students?
Not my students.
Maybe not as dramatic, but
no, not as that's getting awfully dramatic. But yeah, when Joe first did his work, they came. You're a spy. You're actually a spy on our country. They wanted the computers and the papers and everything else. Yeah, they wanted to prosecute Joe. Yeah.
Joe McMoneagle?
Yeah. Yeah. Listen, Joe's good.
How much time did your time overlap with him?
Basically, about 2 or 3 weeks. I took his place in the unit. And he was, the term rod and gun club, ROD, relieved of duty. And, they have the rod and gun clubs. And you're relieved of duty. You're a member of the rod and gun club.
So was he just retiring, or were they?
He was retiring. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. All right. So with these entities that can kind of come back, do you know of any instances where that became a problem? I mean, I think you said you did, but specific stories of psychics that have done their equivalent of remote viewing and taken something back with them?
Oh, yeah. You don't have to look very far to find the answer to that one. A lot of natural psychics get affected by it. A lot of natural psychics get the reputation of being just scatterbrained and, just can't keep their thought on one topic and all this other stuff. And, yeah, a lot of that for a natural psychic is just occupational hazard. Yeah.
Interesting. Now, what about, I'm going to kind of go on a slight detour. What about schizophrenics? And
What about what?
Schizophrenics, like paranoid schizophrenics.
Oh, yeah.
So there's a person I interviewed. His name's Jerry Marzinski. He worked as a psychoanalyst, I think, or psychotherapist. I don't know what the distinction is, but there's a distinction. It might have been psychotherapist. And most of his time he spent in prisons with paranoid schizophrenics.
Yeah.
But instead of just drugging them up, he tried to engage what they were seeing and experiencing.
Yeah.
And in kind of doing, because no one in the prison really cared that he was talking. When he worked at a hospital, they would care because he was indulging their fantasies.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
But his contention was, after 40 plus years working with these people, was that they weren't necessarily seeing or hearing things. Like, they were being influenced by something that fed on negative emotions, etc.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So, is there, something to that where you think their filter on reality is a little bit more, or less, more wide open than kind of the average person? Yeah. Like, are they just crazy, or is there something outside of themselves that's influencing?
Let's take what would seem like a distant analogy of that. Okay. Somebody sees a UFO. Okay. And there it is. Oh, I saw a UFO. Isn't that neat? Okay. Somebody else sees that same UFO, and all of a sudden they think, we're being attacked or whatever, and the end is nigh and all this. And they wind up going to these meetings to deal with the problem, the emotional problem and everything they had for years to follow. For them, it's not the UFO that's causing them to do that. It's themselves. One of the things that is a truth is that you get into this with study of subliminals too. Sometimes a single word or phrase can affect a person for the rest of their life. Okay? And a lot of people, schizophrenic and all that, keep thinking, oh, the walls are talking to me and, and all this. And quite often it's something in their life that triggered it. Now, sometimes it's, physical with the brain, but sometimes something in their life has triggered it and they've hung onto that and not let it go, and it's ruined their life. And they're convinced that it's continuing, that, the evil spirits are constantly talking to me, and when they're actually just making it up. And probably there are other times when the evil does keep attacking. I don't know. But I think there's been enough written and proven documentation. You go back and you deal with the core thing that sets you off in life. You deal with that, and the rest of it clears up. So who knows with the schizophrenics, whether it's physical, whether it's some emotion that happened, whether it happened once or repeatedly. I just pity the psychotherapists as they deal with these things. And listen, you got to be really good and patient to deal with these.
Yeah, because they'll attack you if you're not careful.
Oh, yeah. Mm-hmm.
So one thing he said that works is for them to recite the 23rd Psalm. He's not a religious guy. He just, he just said he would try kind of advise them for conventional medical wisdom, right? He would tell them tell yourself it's not real. You're just hallucinating. And he said that typically would make their symptoms worse.
Yeah.
And then when they would repeat, and it was just a throwaway, try this, try that, try this.
Yeah.
And that one would work more often than not. So there's some interesting connotations, but yeah, I don't, like I said,
I read a thing once where they tried it with music, and the one that they found most effective of all the pieces of music is the song Bridge Over Troubled Waters. It's supposed to be the most calming piece of music ever, better than Gregorian chants or anything like that.
Interesting. And what study was that?
I read it in an article in the Mensa Bulletin. I don't remember any of the details about it. Yeah.
Okay. Where do you think society is headed with all this? Kind of the ability to remote view, psychic phenomena, expansion of consciousness. Yeah.
I think it can save a large portion of the universe or of our society. As you increase your sensitivity to words, to ambiances, to everything, you can tell when people are lying to you. Oh, listen, you listen to a political speech, you listen to an insurance salesman, and you just know. And you can tell what's good for your life, what's not. You can even tell when you're lying to yourself and when you're telling yourself the truth. When you're telling yourself the truth that you're not going to follow, and when you're telling yourself the truth that you will follow. And this sensitivity is not just for protection, it's for things like that. And so the more people who learn this, Sheldrake's
Morphic resonance, right?
Yeah, morphic resonance, 100th monkey theory and all that. The more people who learn it, the easier it becomes to learn. And I think that as more and more people learn it, and now then, I mean, you can't get on the internet or watch TV without remote viewing being mentioned in some way. And
half those people, not half, probably 75% of those people are just doing some.
Oh, I think you're generous there. I would say 90%. But it is catching on, and I think awareness is becoming a good thing to have. Now, awareness is something that, I'll be honest, your government does not want you to have it. Advertisers don't want you to have it. Bad for the economy. You get a public that's aware of things. And listen, in our economy, I'd probably destroyed 75% of the economy because, you might learn that you really don't need a new $500 cell phone every single year. And you might finally dawn on you that you don't need that.
I usually replace mine once every 5 years.
Oh yeah.
But I'll buy the absolute top of the line, and then of both a laptop and a cell phone, and then I'll just use them for 5 years. Won't buy anything.
Oh yeah.
That's the way to go for me.
But watching TV shows, you see all of the placement ads. You realize when you're subliminally, your mind is getting raped. You walk through a store, you see all the psychological placement and design and everything, and you start picking what's best for you instead of what you're being sold. And it makes a difference in life. And the people who are doing that, more and more, that's spreading. I believe. I'm for it.
I know that they used to have subliminal advertising, and they banned it for some time. But
you think? Yeah.
They claim to have banned it for some time, but but I also think there's a certain section of the population that is easily influenceable. And I mean, I got to be careful what I say here because YouTube likes to pull down videos but during the pandemic, we got to see a lot of those people. I got to meet some of those people who, are kind of like self-appointed totalitarians, right?
Oh yeah.
Telling people what to do. Yeah. I'll tell you a story afterwards, but there's one time in my life where I came very close.
Yeah. And how many engineers and logic-minded people have tried to make a self-generated supply of electricity with a magnet that doesn't move? It's not going to happen.
Right.
And yet
you got to move
get
the
these
magnet
YouTube things that show you them building all this, and they put a magnet here and two speakers here, and all of a sudden you've got enough the light bulbs, and come on. And even logic-minded people say, "Oh, I'm going to build one of those."
They can try. It won't work, but they can try.
It doesn't work. No.
Yeah, they can try. Yeah, it's interesting times in terms of. I'll ask you. You probably can't answer, or you don't know. But were there any experiments or programs that, I guess at the time you were doing it, the government would have called it psychotronics?
Yeah,
where
absolutely.
there was experimentation with psychotronics in terms of
Absolutely.
mass
And,
psychosis, population
during
control.
the 60s, they were doing experiments like that in mind control using a lot of psychotronics. And they're still around. And in fact, I think it was the old Popular Mechanics.
Mm-hmm. Magazine still exists, I think.
Well, it still exists, but in a different form. It's a full magazine now. It used to be a little.
Oh, I didn't know that.
And they had ads in the back, on the back last pages, of these things that you could point at somebody and give them headaches. Those were real. And you could buy them. You could buy them, through the ad in the magazine.
What exactly would you buy to point at somebody and give them headaches?
It was advertised as a thing that, you could point at somebody and affect their moods and all this other stuff. And those things worked.
But what did they? Was it a course? Was it a
No, it was a thing that you
drug?
buy. It was a
So
thing
like a
that,
drug that you would ingest, or?
no, there's a little handheld thing that you,
Oh,
yeah,
okay. Oh,
uh-huh,
well, yeah,
yeah,
yeah, yeah. You get like a kind of a handheld microwave or something like that. I
yeah.
bet.
That was all it was. Yeah. They don't advertise those anymore,
Of course not. You don't want to fry somebody's brain, right?
but it's easy to make one. And not
Yeah, it's
hard.
not. Yeah, yeah. I mean, the frequency of a microwave oven's like 2.45 gigahertz.
Oh,
So,
sure. The magnetron in a microwave oven is about that big. You could take that out, put it into a rifle, and you can fry anybody at a mile, you can fry anybody. Yeah, those weapons are there. Psychotronics are there. And you can affect people's thought processes, which are all electronic. I mean, electrical. So, yeah, but that's a much darker side to mechanical devices. Yeah.
well, that's kind of what Havana syndrome is,
Oh,
right?
yeah. Yeah.
Same thing with scientists who in the white world who would get a little bit too close to
Yeah.
anti-gravitic research. They
Mhm.
experience these symptoms. Do you know who Frank Milburn is?
I've heard the name. Hmm.
He's a former MI6 guy
Yeah.
who worked in UK military intelligence. I don't know. I'm
Yeah.
assuming it's MI6. And he consults with victims of these sort of things. He had one guy who was just sitting at work and had this, his throat opened up and he could taste like salt coming out of
Yeah.
somebody had boiled his spinal fluid with one
Yeah.
of these devices and caused it to come through his throat. So yeah, this stuff is some dangerous stuff, and it's been around since at least the 1970s.
Well, our military, the Russian military, and several other military, Chinese and all that, have the brownwave weapons that used on the battlefield. You
The
know what
brown wave weapon? What's that?
they call it brown waves because it's an electronic antenna. It's an antenna that is certain frequency of radar
Shit.
frequency.
Excuse my language.
Shit, yeah.
I
And
can't believe I
aimed it at
intuited
the
that.
enemies,
That's
and they all
bizarre.
poke their pants and everything, and yeah.
What frequency is that, Lynn?
I don't know what the frequency is, but I've seen the weapons. Yeah, called the brownwave device. Yeah.
Well, now we know why they call it the brown wave. Unfortunately, I instantly knew without you telling
Oh, yeah.
me, which is a very descriptive weapon. A very
Oh, yeah.
descriptive weapon. All right. Any final advice for the audience about protection, like psychic protection, things like that? Not only that, but where can people sign up for your courses, that sort of thing?
Oh, okay. Yeah, I have a book called The Seventh Sense, and it has exercises in the back, but it also talks about the remote viewing, our time in the military, and all that. I have a website, crviewer.com. Down at the bottom of the first page is a link that goes to a video that tells you what you do and don't get in the course, and basically tries to talk you out of taking the course because, it tells you the flat truth. And then that link, if you go on further, will let you sign up for the course. Yeah.
Why would you talk anybody out of signing up for the course?
Because there are dangers and there are pitfalls. And, I tell you, hey, this course, you're not going to finish it in 3 days.
Right.
We're talking about a year at least, maybe 3 years. I've had people who are in it now for 20 years, still going, still learning. And once you get into the super high advanced courses, you may have spent 30 years in the course. And so, I tell people, if what you're looking for is woo-woo, you're not going to find it here. What you're looking for is something quick. You're not going to find it here. You think you're going to take a course and win the lottery next week? Forget it. Go somewhere else. You're not going to get it here. So I tell people what it is, what it isn't, so that they go into it without false expectations. Because I like being honest with people. I'm not trying to sales course to get some money. I'm trying to get good remote viewers.
All right, my friend. As always, an absolute pleasure. And it's always good seeing you again, Lyn.
Always. I enjoy talking to you. Yeah.
Yeah, I do too. You're especially someone who's very high IQ like you and still very engaged. And, I appreciate you.
Oh, listen, I've been in this 38 years now. I'm still learning.
Everybody's still learning, brother.
Yeah.
Everybody's still learning.
If I ever quit learning, they'll just cart me off in a casket.
Yeah. That's why a lot of people, when they retire, they die pretty quickly because they've been too focused on one thing and they don't have anything to fall back on, and they just don't think. But anyway, it's just a theory. I'm saying it declaratively like it's the truth, but
I always make the joke, I just want to live to be 120 and then get shot by a jealous husband as I leap over the back fence.
No, that's a great way to go, I'll tell you. All right, Lyn. Thank you.
Anyway, good talking to you.
If you enjoyed today's video, please hit like and subscribe, and also hit the notification button so you can be notified whenever I post new content. Thank you. Now, if you're enjoying the channel and you want to support it, there are several things you can do. In fact, there are 5 things you can do. The first thing you can do is just buy my books. I got plenty of books out in the market right now, and I would prefer that folks buy a book rather than giving me direct support because they get something out of it. They get a real tangible product. The second way you can support me is by becoming a member on YouTube or becoming a patron on Patreon. And just go to either site and it'll explain everything. The third way you can support the channel is by checking out my merch site, which is here. There's plenty of stuff that you can get to support the channel. And I'd appreciate that you have it and you can wear it. Not only do you help support the channel, but you also help promote the channel, and I appreciate that. The fourth way that you can support the channel, and this is really easy, is anytime you want to buy something on Amazon, literally just go to the description below and click on any link, literally any link. The channel gets a cut of that, and it costs you no extra money. You just go through the link, as I'm part of the Amazon Affiliates Club. The fifth and final way you can support the channel is through donations. Now, I don't prefer these because it's more of an expression of gratitude, but you don't really get anything out of it as a subscriber to the channel. However, if you decide to do these options, there's 2 options. There's Buy Me a Coffee, which is a separate site, and there's also, you can go through YouTube with either a super chat, super sticker, or a super thanks. Again, I prefer Buy Me a Coffee because that organization takes less money than Amazon does. But either way, I appreciate any support you are willing to give the channel. So thank you very much, and keep watching. I really appreciate it.